Welcome to week 3 of organizational behavior. This is Diana Block. I'm your online instructor, and this is the fall 2014 quarter. So I wanted to take some time this week to look at your assignments and your required reading, help you get started with that. This week you're going to read chapters 5 and 6, and chapter 5 is going to continue your study of motivation that you started last week. Chapter 4 you read kind of an introduction to motivation, and we're going to learn more about motivation this week. So when you get into chapter 5, what you're going to find is that the text explains that Hackman's model of job design. The Hackman model says that intrinsic motivation comes from 3 different factors related to the job, or can be enhanced by 3 different factors related to the job. So last week in chapter 4 we learned that intrinsic motivation is the motivation from within the individual, their own internal beliefs, values that cause them to act. So in order to affect intrinsic motivation, it comes from within the employee, but there can be things about the job that will affect how the employee feels or what they believe about their position. So the Hackman model says that there are 3 states of mind that can affect an employee's intrinsic motivation. The extent to which they believe their job is meaningful is the first one. The extent to which they experience responsibility for doing their job fully. And the extent to which they see the results of their labor. Let's take a look at this Hackman's model. Here's 3 critical psychological states. These are the 3 states that we need to affect so that employees are intrinsically motivated. They have to experience that their work is meaningful. They have to believe that what they're doing is something important. They have to feel responsibility. They have to feel like they have some important responsibilities and that they're being depended upon to do a good job. And they have to be able to see that there's a point to all this. They have to see that they're the results of their labor, that they are actually building something and contributing towards that something important. So in order to create a situation where employees are experiencing these critical states where they feel their work is meaningful, they understand their responsibility, they see the results of their labor, there are things that the company can do, the job can do, to increase the likelihood that employees will feel this way. And there's 5 core characteristics that contribute to that. In order for people to feel meaningfulness in their work, there needs to be some skill variety, some task identity, and task significance. So with skill variety, we're talking about being able to do a variety of different activities that require different levels of skills and abilities. And then with task identity, we're looking for them to be able to identify that they've completed some part of a whole with the piece of work that they're working on. They can identify with the finished product, so to speak, in the work that they're doing. And then task significance is when workers perceive that what they're doing is actually important and has a significant impact on others. So then to get the feeling of responsibility, there needs to be some kind of autonomy, some degree of personal freedom and discretion in how to go about completing or scheduling the work. And then in order to have the results of their work be acknowledged, we're talking about feedback here, and receiving some clear communication about how effective they are is what we mean by feedback. So this is your Hackman's model with the 5 job characteristics that lead to the critical states, which are going to give us these outcomes we're looking for. The outcome we're looking for is high internal motivation, high satisfaction in the job, and high effectiveness in the job. So you're going to use this Hackman's model in your homework assignment for this week. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so this is your online textbook. If you have a hard copy of the textbook, we're looking at page 143. And and you're going to apply what you've learned. There's an article here about Volvo and their Udavalla plant. And so you're going to read this information about this plant and how it's organized and how they create the job tasks there. And you're going to answer some questions. Sorry about that. You're going to answer some questions about this. And remember, we're relating this to that Hackman's model that we looked at earlier in the chapter, that illustration of the 5 core characteristics. So make sure that in the middle of the article, you don't miss this part of the assignment. And the first column of that article says discuss, and this is the first part of your assignment. Look here. Here's the assignment. Read the world-class company Volvo Udavalla plant on page 143 and answer the 3 discuss questions. 1 in the middle, 2 at the end. This is the one in the middle, so a lot of times people miss this one. So make sure that you answer this question that's in the middle of the article, as well as the 2 that are at the end of the article. Here's the 2 questions that are at the end of the article, but don't forget that one that's in the middle. So this one that's in the middle says discuss. Using Hackman's model of job design, contrast the motivating potential of this Udavalla plant designs with that of conventional assembly lines. So we're wanting you to look at that Hackman's model that we looked at on previous page. And let me see, I believe it was on page 132. So you're going to actually read the article and then relate these 5 job characteristics to how they're being applied at the Udavalla plant and how you believe they're applied at just a normal assembly line plant. So we want to talk about all 5 of these job characteristics in your response to that discussion question. Okay, so then you've got the 2 questions that are going to be at the end also. So let's look at that. And so these are going to be after you've discussed how the Hackman models relate to these 2 different types of plants, the Udavalla versus a normal plant. Then there's the last 2 questions are some additional information about how you would feel like about working at a place that is according to Hackman's model, as you've discussed according to the Udavalla plant. So you're going to talk about also what kind of conditions must exist for something like this to work in the area where you live. Do you think a plant like this could work in your area, the way the jobs are designed? And you'll have to read the article. But would you want to work at a place like this with jobs designed this way? And would it be viable where you live? Do you think it would work out in your area? So those are the questions related to chapter 5, related to motivation that are out of the textbook. Now, let's look at the rest of the assignment. The part B of the assignment this week says you've been appointed a regional manager for McDonald's and you're concerned about motivation. And so it says, here's the key question. What are your ideas for improving morale and increasing motivation in your restaurants? And then look, please use the concepts from the chapter to explain. So we're going to just imagine that you're a regional manager for McDonald's. Motivation is low. And what are some things, some ideas that you have from the chapter? Well, after reading the chapter, what are some things from chapter 5 that you believe you could implement in order to improve the morale? So you're definitely going to use concepts from the chapter. So I'm just going to warn you ahead of time because I've taught this class a lot of times and I know a lot of the pitfalls where people get stuck. On this assignment, for some reason, a lot of people will respond to this question by saying, I would have a meeting and ask everybody what they think we should do. That is not the answer. That's not the answer I'm looking for at all. Because what does it say? What are your ideas? So I'm not looking for you to say have a meeting and ask everybody what they want. I want your ideas, what you think should be done for improving morale. So you need to give me something, not let's ask everybody. I want what would your answer be as far as what needs to be done. Second reason why that answer doesn't work is look here. Please use the concepts in the chapter. You had that answer, let's have a meeting and see what everybody wants to do, has not used any concepts from the chapter. So I need you to go into chapter 5 and say, I would increase the skill variety at McDonald's by doing whatever. I would implement a system of feedback by doing whatever. I want whatever your ideas are. And there's a whole chapter there that talks about job enrichment, job rotation, task identity, job sharing, telecommuting. There's a whole bunch of different concepts in here that relate to employee motivation in an organization. So I want you to imagine you're a regional manager at McDonald's and tell me which of those concepts from the chapter that you believe you could implement in McDonald's to increase morale and motivation. So give me some specific concepts from the chapter that you apply in that situation. Um, Meetings are great, but that's not what we're looking for here. I want you to implement some concepts from our chapter reading in organizational behavior. Okay, so that's your assignment. You're also going to have discussion. The discussion this week is going to ask you about um, previous situations in which you have been demotivated? What are some bad experiences, so to speak, that you've had related to motivation in your employment or even in your just previous history at all, some things that have demotivated you? And when you're answering that, also remember to talk about what should have happened. Could that situation have been made into a positive using concepts from the chapter? Again, we want to make sure that we're tying what we're learning um, related to organizational behavior into these discussions and how these concepts apply to real world situations. Okay, so in addition to the assignment and discussion that's all related to chapter 5, you're also going to read chapter 6. Chapter 6 is also assigned this week. There's no homework assignment or discussion related to chapter 6 just yet, unless you're going to relate chapter 6 to the discussion where it talks about demotivators. There could definitely be something related to chapter 6 that may have applied to a situation when you were demotivated. um, so make sure you also read chapter 6 and incorporate that into your responses as well. um, Chapter 6 is about health and stress at work. And chapter 6 is also going to be included in the quiz that you're going to have next week. Next week in week 4, we're going to have our first quiz, and it is going to include chapters 1 through 8. So make sure you have done all the reading up to that point just to kind of get ready for that next week. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. My email address and phone number are in the instructor area. And I look forward to talking with you in the discussion, and I wish you a great week. Thanks.